Hello and welcome to the Fully Charged Plus podcast. Before I start, I just want to tell you one thing that is totally irrelevant to the actual content of this show, but I had just recorded the introduction to this week's show without pressing record. Yes, 4 minutes of me waffling into the void. No one will ever hear what I said. Some of it was deeply, profoundly offensive. So it's just as well. No, it wasn't. It was all lovely. Very, very annoying. But anyway, now I'm recording. I keep checking the recording button. Yes, it's recording. So this week's podcast is with someone of a similar age to me, only much more competent and well-educated and intelligent. Roger Atkins if you are on LinkedIn, you will probably have come across Roger. He runs the Electric Vehicle Outlook on LinkedIn. There's many, many people following him on there. He's a very, very well-connected, well-informed man, very ensconced within the automobile industry and going through and kind of logging, if you like, or recording the changes and the traumas and the ups and downs and the different challenges that the automotive industry faces. Extraordinary man, really knowledgeable, really good fun. We do go off topic a little bit here and there, but it is very, very interesting. So would love you to enjoy it as much as I enjoyed making it. Before we start, I just want to mention the two little subscriber things very briefly. Obviously love you to subscribe to the Fully Charged Plus podcast. That would be really wonderful. Tell your friends and family about it if they're interested in these sort of topics. We do go into a little bit more detail on the podcast than we can on the regular show, Fully Charged show on YouTube. But if you haven't subscribed to that or even seen it, please do go and have a look at that. youtube.com/fullychargedshow. And we're also trying to get more subscribers there. We're going to be able to give away 4 wonderful prizes, a new electric car for a year in 4 different parts of the world: North America, the British Isles, Europe, and probably Australia/New Zealand. So if you, we're going to do that once we've passed 1 million subscribers, which we're heading in the right direction as we speak. So please, if you haven't subscribed, do go over and have a quick subscription. It doesn't cost you anything. And also it doesn't really mean anything to you, but it has a big influence on YouTube and the way they promote the Fully Charged show, which I have to say is doing very, very well. Our numbers are really up big time on that show as well, which is great fun. That's all. I just want to have allow a short period of time to air our wonderful, what I was going to say was give some air, give some oxygen to our wonderful, I want to keep this in. I want to keep this in because it's someone who's been talking on Zoom quite a lot today and my brain has really gone to poo. Our wonderful sponsors. Please have a look at the links and everything in connection with them. They are so wonderfully generous to support this podcast. It would not be here without them. Simple as that. So here's a word from our sponsors. My Energy is putting the I back into British innovation. My Energy is putting the I back into inventing the future. My Energy is putting the I back into inspiring a nation. Recharging the world with green, smart energy. Charge your EV with your PV and more. Visit myenergy.com and help to spark the green revolution. My Energy, driving the charge to a greener future. Thank you very much for that. And without more ado, let's get on with the show. Please welcome Roger Atkins from Electric Vehicles Outlook to the Fully Charged Plus podcast. Mustang Mach-E. Okay, no, tell me about that, Roger. They're going to, their official launch? Because I went to a Ford event in the Netherlands where I thought they were going to announce it, and they announced a plug-in hybrid.
No. This was
the actual Mustang launch.
Yeah. So this was the Ford Mustang launch, November 2019 in Hawthorne, in Los Angeles. Hawthorne is a name people know. It's a little airport, and the airport is next to a chap who's building space rockets, Elon Musk's SpaceX.
SpaceX, yeah.
So that's where we were. That's what it was, and Idris Elba was the kind of celebrity host of the event. Bill Ford was there, of course. I mean, Chelsea Sexton was there.
Right.
So all the people that you and I are familiar with that do EV stuff. And it was spectacular. It was amazing. They had an evening event, a proper launch, and a countdown thing. They synced that up with other countries. But before that, the day before, you had access to a whole kind of show and tell of what was behind the battery, what was behind, the charging proposition, what was the hookup with Electrify America. They really had thought it through. Right. And a guy called Ted Canis had been set up in a project which had been going for several years. Of course, these things don't happen overnight. Yeah. And it was called Project Edison. And of course, the lovely thing there is that, Thomas Edison and Henry Ford were friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. A huge history of electric vehicles in that period. I mean, it's extraordinary. Ford very involved.
Well, I got to tell you, Rob, the first ever LinkedIn article I wrote I called it Elephant in the Room. And I imagined that there was a moment where Henry Ford and Thomas Edison got together and they said, what should we have, electric cars or combustion cars? Yeah. And they talked it all through, and possibly it went something like this. Henry Ford said to Thomas, well, what's the recurring revenue model of your electric vehicle thing? Well, there isn't one. People buy it, charge it, and drive. Yeah. Okay. Well, my proposition, it's combustion engines, and it has, friction parts, wear and tear. Yeah. So the business model for my industry will be a recurring revenue model of friction parts, belts and chains and lubricants and all sorts of things. So it won't just be selling the product, it will be selling the product and services. So that is more of a business. And of course, there was more to it than that. The invention of the starter motor, where we were with batteries, a whole host of things. But fundamentally, I think if we're really honest with each other, or just realistic to the world, it was a better business model at the time. And that's why then, that's why then it was almost like a crossroads moment between where Thomas Edison was with electric vehicles and Henry Ford was with combustion vehicles, 1905, 6, 7, 8, around that time. An extraordinary moment in history where it could have gone either way.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I saw one of those pie charts. I have seen them before, which was the breakdown of privately owned automobiles in like 1906-7, somewhere around that, pre-First World War. And it was fractionally the majority was steam, which of course is a technology everybody knew. And I've driven a steam car. It was really impressive, an old steam car. Right. And then a slightly lesser, kind of just over quarter was electric, and then just under quarter was petrol. And that was for a period of time, not that long. But, without question, petrol at that time was in the minority of the drivetrains that people were buying. This was cars sold. This wasn't cars being made, cars sold.
Yes, it was. And the other things that we can learn from history or observe and reflect on is, for example, that a lot of women liked electric cars because they were cleaner and because you didn't need a starter motor. You had to crank handle start the internal combustion engine for quite some time. Yeah. And for a lot of people, and at the time, a lot of women who typically were wealthy women really couldn't see why, given there was a better alternative, an electric, car, that they wanted to muck around with this great big crank handle, which was pretty dangerous back in the day. Yeah. In fact, I do actually remember my dad had an Austin A40, I think it was. Yeah. And I remember we used to have to start it sometimes at the front. And if you didn't let go of the thing, I mean,
terrible. Well, there were lots of injuries. I mean, that was one of the stories I read many years ago, because it was a guy called Charles F Kettering, who was working on an electric drivetrain for the Model T Ford for Henry Ford. I think he ran a separate electric powertrain company that was very connected to Edison, and he was very much in that circle. And a friend of his, someone he knew, was cranking a petrol engine, and the crank handle flew out when the engine fired and pierced his chest. And about 3 days later, he died of, imagine in those days, a horrendous death and injuries. And he was so upset by this that he then devised a smaller electric motor that fitted onto a cog, and when it was under power, it would lock into the cog, and when it stopped under power, it would be free of it, the starter motor. And he was the guy who invented the starter motor because of that motivation. He wasn't involved in the petrol side of the business at all before then. And because Thomas Edison had an electric Model T Ford that he charged off a wind turbine in his house in New Jersey. That's just the most extraordinary story. That's still there. That house is still there. You can go around it. It's open to the public.
You can't make this stuff up. And when you I didn't know a lot of that. When you reflect on it and look at where we are today, it just shows you, what goes around comes around.
Yeah.
I don't just mean,
wind turbines.
Here's another one then. Just while we're having a little kind of reminisce and connecting up the past with the present and maybe the future. Battery swapping. Battery swapping was prevalent in the 1920s in New York City.
Yeah, that's extraordinary.
With big, obviously lead acid battery trays. And it was the way they could get the vehicles to be utilized more, to be out on the road more. They'd have 2 batteries for each car, and they would then swap out the used battery and stick in the fresh one.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we've come into now, you're familiar with the Better Place journey, that moment in time that looked spectacular that then didn't turn out that way. However, we are now seeing, that battery swapping come to the fore now. Yeah, absolutely. Well, obviously with smaller vehicles like, bikes and trikes and other things.
Scooters and things, yeah. Absolutely.
Yes, and especially in places like, in Asia, especially in India. I'm looking up in the air because I'm looking up at a map, by the way, just so I can remember where everywhere is. But in fact, I'll show you, Rob. Look, that's
oh my God, that is such a cool thing to have on your wall.
It's a whopper. It's an entire wall of
map.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I did it, because last year we didn't go anywhere. I thought the best thing to do was to
just look at places you can't go.
Yeah, look at what you could have won. But yeah, so Battery Swap now, Go Row is a very famous brand that does that. But the big benefit of them with smaller vehicles is, of course, people can detach them, take them into their house, so they're safe, don't get nicked, and they can charge them, them at home overnight.
But are there cars with that sort of? Surely a car battery is going to be too big for that.
Look, do you remember what's that comic? Dan Dare in the comic Beano. He'd eat a cow pie. If you're Dan Dare, you can lift the battery out and take it upstairs, but no one else can.
To be quite strong.
No. But of course, NIO have now brought this into modern use, and there are lots of other OEMs, believe it or not, Rob, coming along with it.
Right.
Yeah, I went to Shanghai Automotive's facility. I think it was in Beijing, and in their kind of museum, not call it museum, in their kind of display area, they were showing, an actual live example of battery swapping. And I think what might be going to happen, Rob, is we're moving into a time where there are fewer vehicles in terms of millions of brands and makes, and maybe the fleet use is going to be more prevalent, and maybe more of the same type of vehicle being used will come to the fore, and that then delivers a more likely scenario of having a similar battery proposition that you can interchange in a swap scenario.
It makes so much sense that automakers, I think because there's this company that we've just done an interview with that are just about to launch all their stuff, I'm sure you've heard of it, from Israel.
Know Daniel very well.
He's wonderful, and I love what they're doing. And that kind of modular design, if I was a young car designer now, I'd be trying to set up a company that has no intention ever of making a drivetrain or steering assembly or batteries or control. I just go, give me the really thing, and I'm going to design this really cool thing that sits on top.
Yes,
it's brilliant. That is really easy to use. That is safe. That is all those things. Energy efficient, because you've got that underlying thing. Well, they are the perfect company to develop that drivetrain into a one, which I know it does. They can drop the battery out as a pack and replace it. They're talking about a kind of end of life, or rather than whilst you're driving.
But I think a very interesting thing is happening, Mr. Llewellyn, which is people are. I don't know why I said that. I wanted you to sound like, yeah.
I feel like a bank manager now.
Yeah. Yes. So, Mr. Llewellyn. But what I think's emerging is there's a kind of rethink of where are we with energy, making energy supply. Where are we with using that energy, and where are we with mobility and storage, and trying to think intelligently about how to blend all these things together differently, not being too binary in our approach.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that, for example, in terms of what we're saying with either battery swapping or wireless charging, is that you don't have to have everything. It can't all be about the battery in terms of range, for example. I think it was the head of Audi, Marcus Duesman, recently said this fixation on ever longer range just is madness.
Yeah.
Ever longer range, ever bigger batteries, more weight to carry around. Yeah. Why? And the reason why is, and in fairness, it's been sort of logical so far. It's been because the charging infrastructure has been bloody rubbish.
Yeah.
So as the charging infrastructure gets better, less bloody rubbish, you can then in effect create the range through the charging infrastructures that you're putting out there, and therefore the batteries can get smaller, which makes sense because we can't keep building so many batteries when we have the challenge upstream in minerals and mining and all of that stuff. Something's got to give. So in other words, that kind of equation of the nexus between renewable energy and new mobility, that there are different equations being written now to deliver that development, that aren't just predicated on let's get a big battery with the longest range, job done. It's that isn't the answer.
No. I mean, it is those two things that I think are becoming increasingly apparent, and I think really, well, what you've just described, I think is much less challenging, from the simple fact of, if you made someone in a laboratory under scientific conditions sit still for 3 hours, you would have to have lots and lots of UN mandates, because it's basically cruel and it's wrong and you shouldn't. It's a tantamount to torture, and yet no one thinks twice about sitting absolutely still for 3 hours in a car, where they're having to do a really complex process. It's really bad for your body, as you and I know, of gentlemen of a certain age, your bladder. And actually, 3 hours is in European driving is about 150 miles, which means you don't need more than 100. You need 180 miles range in a car is like super adequate for everything, because you've got to bloody stop after that. And you've got to have half an hour's break, and in that time you fill it again, and it's but I think the other thing is, which I think is very pertinent to what you said, which I'm thinking about more and more, is the ownership model, the private ownership model of car usage. It just does not stack up, and the more so I only found out yesterday 18% of adult human beings own a car now in the world. 18, that's a tiny amount. That's a hell of a lot of people don't own them. And so if they want to own them and they become into a position where they can own them, India, China being the two obvious examples, it's not going to work. We haven't got enough of anything it doesn't matter even if we just use diesel. There's not enough steel to make that many cars. There's not enough road to put them on. There's not enough parking spaces to park them. As a model, private ownership doesn't work. That's as a global model for transportation. Cars. We're going to look back in 200 years' time and go, that was the era of the private car. It'd be actually quite short, 90 to 100 years. And then it has to change. But that's a really hard sell. In the business we're going, I just watched a review of the ID4 that I've done. It is your classic, this is a beautiful car that you'll want to own. I love this car. This is brilliant. And that's true. But all the time I'm thinking, yeah, but really, should we?
Well, I think we've talked about this quite a few times actually, Rob. But I think things are moving on. But I think it's like we've said before. It's two things really. It's cultural and it's technology driven. So it's a bit like, in theory, would it be good if we could just use cars when we wanted them? Any car, a flashy one, a boring one, whatever. Yeah, in theory, it would be good. And then you say, but hang on, in practical terms, how's that going to work? Yeah. Everyone's going to want a cabriolet when the sun shines. Yes. Everyone was going to want an estate car at summer to go on holiday. In practical terms, how's it all going to work? The simple answer is we need to make it work. To your point about the starter motor, necessity is the mother of invention. Yeah. If someone needs to invent something that doesn't currently exist because there's a necessity for it, they will invent it. Yeah. It's what we do as humans. And the other thing that I think is fascinating is that you mentioned India and China. I'd add Africa to that as well.
Yes, sorry, Africa, so, absolutely.
Yeah, well, the three big kind of continents, if we call India and Asia and Africa continents, have got growing populations, particularly India, particularly Africa, typically younger people. But here's an intriguing thought. They are well versed in sharing for a host of reasons. It'd be too simplistic to just say economic. They're relatively poorer than people in Europe or people in America. Whilst that's true, it's not the only dynamic. Culturally, they have understood that the best way to, get on and do things is to share stuff. They are much more cooperative culturally amongst each other, and good at fixing things. Don't throw stuff away. So we're the guilty ones, and God, let's hold our hands up. All of us in the West, all of us. In this 200 years post-industrial revolution, the impact of that on CO2 in the atmosphere has been of our making. Yeah. And I think culturally and in terms of selling this change, one of the I'll call it more than slight, big problems is here we are seemingly lecturing all these other people to do something completely different than we've done.
We've been doing for 150, 200 years. Benefiting from it. I mean, we've benefited from that impact, haven't we? And those developments.
We have. I feel like I'm coming back from a fantastic party that, has finished at 5 o'clock in the morning. And then there's a load of people coming towards me and say, where are you going? Oh, we're going to that fantastic party. Oh, you can't, mate. It's finished.
It's finished,
Was it good? Oh, it was amazing.
It was amazing, but it was very wasteful. It was terrible. We left a terrible mess.
Yeah, you can't go because there's more of you. It was okay because there was only a few of us.
Only a few of us. And we trashed the place. We absolutely destroyed it.
I mean, really.
You're right. That's a very good analogy.
I've just got a tickly cough. Yes. Nothing else. But can I just say again, the video for the Ford Mustang that you made, just lush.
Thank you.
I think, the connection with horses and horsepower. It's nice to do that. Obviously, the origin of the 1960s Mustang was about kind of showing that metaphor of freedom and horsepower.
Well, it was the cowboy horse, wasn't it? I didn't really take that in. That's what the Mustang. They all rode Mustangs. That's what when you see cowboy films, that's what they're riding. Yeah.
And I don't know why, but they called them all Sally for some reason, which just they just apparently is what they did. But no, I just want to say to you and your team, especially the filming and editing team, man, that was so lush. It was like being at the pictures. Honestly, after about 15 minutes, I asked Sue to bring a tray of ice creams round so I could choose an ice cream whilst I was watching it, just to really feel like I was at the
Did she have a little paper crown on? She should have had that on as well.
I made her dress up, but that's a private thing, Rob. That's not, that's a personal and private thing.
Sorry, shouldn't mention that.
But no, great job on that. I mean,
thank you.
You do. I don't know how you do it because you produce a lot of content.
It's knackering.
Well, don't overdo it. I mean, I think this is the thing. Or can I tell you, I've got a few projects. Can I share a few?
Yeah, if you want to. We're very happily to hear.
Okay. Yeah. Very quickly then. So I've got a project called Motorsport in the Electric Age.
Ooh, right.
What I want to do and what I will be doing in April with a lovely co-host, so someone actually who's smart, who's actually an aerodynamicist.
That always helps.
yes, and using someone who's a proper filmmaker, and I'm not going to say who yet, but working with a Formula One and a Formula E team.
Brilliant.
And basically talking about the motorsport in the electric age.
Right.
Where are we going to go with Formula One and the other combustion-based motorsport formulas? What are those teams of people capable of doing? What can they do differently as this thing, emerges? Because I think what a lot of people don't realize is that the capability in a lot of these Formula One teams is the pinnacle of engineering, but not just automotive engineering. It's in arenas like aerodynamics, I mentioned that, power electronics, all sorts of things which are applicable both to electric vehicles and many other things. Right. A quick case in point, as an example, would be, I think it was Williams Advanced Engineering, worked with one of the supermarkets that were struggling to get better efficiency out of their cold cabinets, where all the cold meats and things are in a supermarket. And they used the aerodynamic capability to put the airflow more efficiently around these cold cabinets and use much less energy. Right. And also, it's like you go to a supermarket sometimes, freeze your butt off walking around.
Yes, which is a bad sign, because that means they're wasting that cooler.
You may have noticed of late that it's not so cold around those places because many more of them are made much more efficient. So that's just one example of something that's got nothing to do with motorsport, but then becomes applied to a big area of issue, because I'm sure I did mention this last time, this drawdown thing, Project Drawdown.
All right.
The analysis of all the things that combine to impact on carbon in the air. Number one rank order is refrigeration.
Wow. So that is extraordinary. I've never heard that before.
89.74 gigatons total atmospheric CO2.
Wow.
So this is summary of solutions by overall ranking, and it goes from 1 to 80, and it has them all listed what they are. And then on drawdown.org, if anyone wants to look at it, you can see a drill down then all the way through of how has this assessment been made, what are the potential countermeasures, and what are the values. But number one, refrigeration.
Wow.
So
we've got to do a refrigeration episode on Fully Charged.
well, if I can just jump on that, I think Project Drawdown, for me, of anything I've seen in the last 10 years, is the most interesting thing, because it analyzes everything to do with where is the CO2 in the atmosphere? How did it get there? How does it keep going up there? And a lot of it is measured in things that you just wouldn't imagine you could appropriate CO2 to. So, for example, 2 of the top 10 items, given yesterday was International Women's Day, are the education of young girls and women and family planning. Right. If those 2 areas were addressed far better than they are today by society all over the world, it varies, of course, it would have a massive impact, believe it or not, on CO2 in the atmosphere. Right. Fewer people eating less food, using less stuff, for example. But also then there is so much talent that gets squandered simply because in many cultures, you happen to be a girl, you're not going to get the same education. Yeah. You might have a brilliant mind, but never mind, that they're not interested. Yeah. And that's where we're wasting a lot of human capital and human resource. And let's be frank, even in our own world, excuse me, even in our own world, we've got structures in a lot of businesses where it's men that prevail, and there clearly must be lots of really talented girls and women who don't get a look in. Yeah. What are we missing out on that they could have invented, developed, nurtured, given us? So, it's not a question of being politically correct, because I have had friends of mine say to me, "Oh, you just jump on a bandwagon and say stuff that's sounds like, oh yeah, that's what people think." I think in the context of equality and women, let's just get the best people on, doing the job.
Exactly.
Who cares what gender they are? Yeah. But that's not what we have in the world today. Yeah. We have a dominant male society, which, destabilizes what we could have in terms of bringing talent to the fore and progress.
Yeah. And you still, it's becoming, the last time I remember flying with my wife, she mentioned, because the pilot came on the thing and said, "Welcome, we're going to fly at something." and it was a woman. And I honestly, that was the first time I was so proud of myself. I didn't take any notice. I didn't care.
Yeah, yeah.
It was a pilot. That was all that mattered. I didn't care. But I think you're absolutely right. And actually, one of my hobby horses, which was inspired many years ago, is a book called Human Quake, People Quake. Sorry, I always call it the wrong thing. People Quake, which is about the coming crash in global population, which is really interesting. It's because you and I are of the generation where it was the population explosion and there's too many, we'll never feed them and it's going to be horrendous and it's Armageddon because there's so many people. And this book is the absolute equally catastrophic opposite, because the birth rate is so low in so many countries in the world. And it is even low. I mean, he focuses on Bangladesh quite a lot. It's a non-replaceable birth rate in Bangladesh. I would think Bangladesh is like every woman has 16 children, terrible, my terrible racism. No, they don't. They have less children in Bangladesh than when you and I were born, which was 2.4 children. They're at 2.2. That doesn't replace, the mathematics of population are very confusing, but 2.2 children per woman does not replace the population. That means you've got a declining population.
Yes.
It's 1.2 in the UK. It is 0.09 in Russia. If nothing happens in Russia, by the year 2200, there'll be no Russians. That was one of his opening things. It's a fascinating book. I mean, if any listeners want to, it's called People Quake by Fred Pierce.
I haven't read it. Can I ask a question about it then? My sense of one of the challenges ahead, and challenge and opportunity, is about demographics. It's about the age profile. Is that in the West, generally speaking, we're getting older. There are disproportionately more older people. In Africa in Africa and Asia, they're disproportionately young. And sort of getting younger. And this is going to be, I think, is going to have a profound impact on the world in terms of how will it work? Because we all know that if you're older, and certainly once you get to, aspects of old age where you need some care and other things, it's a different structure to society. And the ratio between workers and retired people, is a critical part of the economics of any country. Of course it is. So I think they're on the horizon, and I don't want to start being, doom laden. No. Because people listen to this to be uplifted. Hopefully.
We ruined it for them.
We must do some uplifting things in the moment. But while we're on the subject of, really, really depressing everybody, the demographics, I think, are kind of like a time bomb thing. And this is why, just jumping back to driverless vehicles, shared vehicles, robot stuff, where particularly in the West, being very selfish for a moment, if we want to sustain mobility into old age, it probably isn't going to be linked to being able to drive the thing yourself. No. And if I'm lucky enough to get to be 70 or 80 or 90, but maybe my eyes or something mean I can't or shouldn't drive, I won't have any problem at all in a little robot thing rocking up so I can go and pester my children or grandchildren. I'll happily do that. And if I'm able to do that, it's likely I'll maintain a better level of health because I've got independence and I don't rely on people to do the shopping, to take me to so-and-so. There are dynamics to this stuff that are going on that are quite, they're very basic things, but I think they're very important things as to why they're happening and the time frame in which they're coming together. Yeah.
No, I mean, it is that the difficult. Well, that one of the key things he mentions is, why do you think the Japanese are so keen to develop caring robots? And you see those reports all the time, and they're always portrayed as a bit of a joke in the news. And now a robot that can listen to you and do therapy. Well, because there's no young people in Japan to look after the massive aging population. And Japanese people are very healthy. They live very healthy lives. They live till they're 106.
Here's a prediction: within the decade, every home in Japan will have a Crichton. They will. They'll have to.
Doing some cleaning, ma'am. Allow me to wipe that for you.
My favorite podcast, I'm not just saying this, your podcast channel, and David Hunt. David Hunt's, This Week in Clean Tech. He's had so many amazing people on that.
Right.
It's fantastic. I'm not trying to be in competition to either of you, but
no,
I'm going to start a podcast channel next month, but I'm only going to do one interview a month, just right. one. And I have my first guest lined up. I probably won't say who he is yet.
But you'll get really good high-level people. You're very well connected.
Well, it's not that. It's just my great fortune is I happen to have a nice audience on LinkedIn, a bit like you've got with, Fully Charged, 760,000, whatever it is now. And of course, who you are and what you do is your audience. Yeah. Yes, of course, it's you to some extent, but mostly you're able to get the guests you get and whatever because of your audience.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, okay, yes, I know a little bit of stuff. I can have a chat with someone, but the reason why I will be able to get some nice people on is because they would like to be in front of an audience, the right sort of audience in terms of interest in what they do. So next month, I'm going to be talking to what I would consider to be one of the top 3 individuals in the story of the modern day electric vehicle proposition. Wow. He's an individual who, I've known him for probably 13 years. Right. First met him in London, knew about his journey. Everybody knows about his journey, but I'm not going to say who it is until I've got it all, booked up and whatever. Probably be the 3rd week of April. And then, I'm going to do one a month.
That's a good idea. If you can get high quality, a little high quality is better than torrent of
No, but you do it. I mean, we talked last time, we had a chat about Carlos Ghosn when you used to be a chauffeur back in the day.
Yes.
And I mean, it was only once.
It was only once.
But I mean, in fairness to Carlos Ghosn, and without getting into any of the what happened next thing, he and Elon Musk are the 2 people who really stuck their neck out.
Yeah.
And so we have a lot to thank them for. Everyone can have an opinion about Tesla and Elon Musk and whatever, and his weird and wacky ways. But if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have a career, the one that I've got, the ability to build a network in and around EVs on LinkedIn. It wouldn't have happened. Yeah. It just wouldn't. No. So, I personally got everything to thank him and the army he now, commands, so to speak. Yeah. There was a good video, by the way, went up today. I saw Drew Baglino put it up. It was Tesla's 2020. Rob, you've got to watch it. Oh. How has anyone managed to do what they do? It's a video that just goes through everything they achieved last year. Right. It's about 3 minutes, whatever. Progressing Gigafactory in Berlin, building, in China, putting the Model Y out, launching it here and there, everything. And you just sort of think to have done that against
the background of a pandemic.
Unbelievable. So you don't have to buy a Tesla or even want or even like a Tesla to not understand just how important they've been,
pivotal,
still are and will be into the future. But I'm not, I don't want to say it in this way, in one way, but I'm not a Tesla fanboy.
No, I'm always struggling not to be, because I think it's important not to be.
Yeah, but you've got a Tesla Model 3.
I have a Model 3, which is it is a brilliant car. But we also have a Hyundai Kona. And I mean they're both leased because I filled in the census yesterday. Right. The new census that's coming up in a few weeks, and you can fill it. It's online, and it asked how many cars are in the family, in the household, and I felt so guilty because there are 3, and I wanted to say, well, there's 3, but 2 of them are leased. So I've got the Nissan Leaf, which is I'm so excited about. It's just had a new battery put in. My old 2011 Nissan Leaf's now got a 40 kilowatt hour battery, but it's in Amsterdam. I can't get it.
Yeah. Anyway. By the way, when is your competition going to finish? With 4 people are going to win
a year's lease for a year.
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
I was also really amazing that it's not just in the UK. So it's one in the UK, one in Europe, which, as we now know, is separate.
Don't start.
Sorry,
don't start. It was bad enough with the pandemic. Not with that as well. Please, Rob.
Okay, sorry. And now one in North America and then one in the rest of the world, which I think is probably Australia, which is a terrible thing to say because it should be, Malaysia or somewhere. But, that's where we know we can do this. So it's once we get 1 million subscribers, which is going to take a quite a while, because we're not like, we're not fashionable.
Oh, no, I think you are. I think here's the challenge for any of us doing what we do: not to live in an echo chamber, to find people who don't agree with us, to find that fresh audience, to discover people who know nothing about charging rates and kilowatt hours and all of that stuff. They're the people really now and for the next period of time that we really should try and find a way to communicate with. And I don't want to be so pompous as to say educate, but inform. Call it inform,
or even just give an alternate piece of information that it isn't maybe quite as biased. There's plenty of very negative stuff about renewable energy electric vehicles, in the world in general, and to give a balance to that. The most recent success we've had in that area was the animated cartoon that was about the impact of electric vehicles in comparison with fossil fuels. I don't know if you've seen it, but is that on your
channel?
Yeah, I voiced it. So I did it probably over a year ago. I'd forgotten about it, and it's a really lovely lad. And Mark Linthicum is his name, and he did all the animation on it and wrote the script, and I just voiced it. But then we put it out on the channel, so it's a very nicely produced animation. But what's clearly happened is people have shared this way outside what you could classify as the fully charged bubble. People have he's open sourced it. It's actually a Collective Commons, isn't it? Or whatever that thing is.
Yeah, Collective Commons attribute.
Yes, so they have to ask his permission. But so people have revoiced it in Spanish, Portuguese, French, German, Italian, everything.
I've got to look at that.
Yeah, and it goes through the arguments about, which is the thing I've been banging on for years, and he just put it in really good graphical form. Is we measure everything that goes into an electric car when we power it, and there's a lot of it's coal. You have to burn coal and transmit your losses in transmission. All those arguments, torrents of them. And then what do we measure on a combustion car? What comes out of the exhaust
tailpipe? Yeah. No.
Such a simple, a brilliant piece of it's that brilliant FUD that those guys are really good at. That they put out that stuff. People who did asbestos, tobacco. What is the one? Catalytic converters. Now we've got catalytic converters. Your car's clean. Run the exhaust pipe into your baby's bedroom. It'll be fine. So clean.
That's not going to work. Oh, can I be personal for a minute on a very personal note? I am thrilled about something. My eldest son, Joshua, has had a career in the brewing industry. He's done very well. Right. And to be honest with you, I've done very well out of it too, because, he would bring home beer now and again, which was, nice. Either a bit cheaper than whatever, or samples and things. Right. So I'm on the one hand devastated because he's now left that profession, right, Rob. But what I'm thrilled about is he's going to work in EV land. He's going to work for GridServe. So he's going to help develop and find and progress the sites that they're going to have. As you know, they're on a big journey. They're going to have 100 facilities, probably all not going to look like the one in Braintree, but lots of facilities to give people that confidence, to give that energy, literally, to the electric vehicle momentum. And crucially, and I love the fact that this is what GridServe are all about, plugged into the sun. How do you charge a car up? You charge it from the sun.
The sun,
89 million miles away. Takes 8 minutes to get here. Wallop in your car. Yeah. I mean, just lovely. So Joshua Atkins, I think he starts next Monday. He did it all. I had nothing. I didn't want to get involved in it because that wouldn't have been appropriate. And it's a big decision that he's made in his life and his career. And I didn't. The last thing you do as a dad is get involved in that because if it didn't work out, you get blamed, wouldn't you?
Big time.
But I think he's done the right thing at the right time. So forgive me for being sort of personal, but
it's such a good thing to hear, and also the fact that it's a concrete example of why it's a good idea to transition away from fossil fuels, because fossil fuels don't employ that many people in this country. Well, a few thousand engineers and scientists work within what you could classify as the greater fossil fuel industry. So not just transportation, but refining, plastics, pharmaceuticals, all those things that come out of the oil industry.
Yes.
Whereas the renewables, things like grid serves, that installation and running those systems, that's going to employ a hell of a lot of people in this country and benefit the economy of this country, because the energy is not being paid for to other economies to bring it in, which is what we've been doing for the last 100 years.
Well, I've got to be honest. You've said some kind things about what I know, and yeah, I know some stuff about EVs, but I really don't know much at all about energy, solar energy, the whole kind of renewable energy arena. And I know you do, because you not only know that, you live it, because I don't have solar panels on my roof, Rob, and so the journey you've been on, both personally and professionally, in terms of embracing this and sharing that stuff, I know. You know that area far better than I do, which is great. Can we talk about one other thing?
Oh yeah.
And this will really annoy anyone that doesn't have an iPhone. I don't work for Apple.
Right.
There's no commercial ties. No, yeah, exactly. However, at the moment, and I don't know why it's taking them so long, you can only go on this thing called Clubhouse if you have an iPhone, not an Android, which seems quite annoying. But you and I have been on it. So think about another area and a place in which people that don't know anything or much about EVs are hanging out. I've found that that's the case on Clubhouse. So this thing where you go in and it's like a podcast meets, talk radio kind of thing. For anyone that doesn't know about it. You and I have been on it. You were kind enough to share an hour with us last week. We do a thing on every Wednesday. We had Chelsea Sexton and Chris Payne the week before that. We had Chelsea again, and Christina Boo from Norwegian Association. We've got Li Jing this Wednesday, who was for 8 years the head of the chief editor of China News Daily in terms of automotive stuff. So he knows everything that's going on in China.
Wow, fantastic.
So that'll be a good hour. There's no doubt about that. But that's, again, an arena where I've listened in to quite a lot of groups around EVs where, I've just listened. I haven't got involved in talking, whatever. And it's remarkable when you hear people who are just starting on the EV thing. They don't know anything about it. A bit in your head wants to say, oh, but you must know about this. Well, no, they don't, because it's all completely new. And it just reminds me that sometimes we should go back and sort of do a basic sort of thing.
Absolutely.
That series you did, that Maddie Moat did with you.
Really
I put those up again recently on LinkedIn, because I thought it's all too easy to assume everybody is along with you and is on the same kind of level of the journey. But go back to 101. Go back to, well, what is a battery? How does it work? And people like Maddie are great at doing that, and also people like Billy Wu are fantastic at doing that with batteries. The guy from Imperial. Yes. There are some wonderful people around who can just help get everybody started, or even, let's be honest, I'll include myself, occasionally refresh your own knowledge. Okay, I've slightly got that wrong. I didn't realize that's how it worked. I think we can all do with a refresher now and again.
I just want to do some, it's all brilliant. But before we finish, because the thing is, we could do, I think we should try one day to see if we can do the longest podcast where we just waffle, and you download it and you go, bloody hell, this is taking a long time, and it's 97 hours long.
I'm not here with sandwiches and a flask. And
I just wanted to mention, because you all know these, I wanted to remind myself and our listeners of the number of large, well-known global automotive manufacturers who've said, this year, 2021, we will only make electric cars from such and such a day. Because I've now lost track. So I can remember Jag did it a while ago. Volvo's just done it. I don't know who else. Who else has done it? Have anyone else done it?
This year, now let me think.
Or ever. I can't think now. I've lost. So many of them have said it.
Well, here's where it gets interesting. They've all got to do it anyway, because either legislation or declarations by government are putting these 2035, 2030 dates anyway. So without being disingenuous, they've got to do it anyway. And the cycle of production of a new model and the R&D costs are such that if you're getting towards this cliff edge, well, stop running. You don't want to run towards a cliff edge. It's never a good idea.
Yes.
Because something happens normally if you do that. So So I think they're all going to do it anyway. What's more interesting is I think some people who pushed it out further, like Daimler had said, I think 2 years ago, even 2039. They now said, one of the board members, Marcus Schaefer, actually, and I've talked to him myself, has intimated that it's likely to be sooner than that.
Right.
Now, it's very easy to say, oh, they're just hedging their bets.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's not as simple as that, because a lot of these companies, especially the established OEMs, have got to put it all together as a plan. And one of those plans, certainly in Germany, is discussion with the unions. Is to understand where this fits in terms of potential retraining or redundancies. This is going to have a seismic.
Oh God, particularly in Germany. I mean, their economy is so intimately connected with automotive manufacturing, isn't it?
So putting it together in terms of a plan means that you're now hearing people saying they're bringing it forward. So, but what I think still should happen, Rob, I really do believe this, is that ASEA, the Association of European Automotive People, and the European Union, they really should fix a sensible date for because it's all over the place at the moment. Different countries, different dates. I don't know how the hell that's going to work when it comes to manufacturing and cut-off dates and used vehicles and residual values and all of that stuff. For sure, get on with it. But I think it would be much more healthy to say 2030 is the cut-off date across the whole of Europe. Every single member state, including us, by the way. We're not a member state. But then to at least you then give the automotive industry, a fair chance of dealing with it. Because we don't want to destroy it. We want it to change. It's being made to change. Let's not forget about this by the impetus of Tesla, by what's been going on in China and European legislation. This isn't, we've decided to change stuff. It isn't. Let's not kid ourselves. But again, being empathetic to an industry that employs a lot of people and has a lot of talent in it and can deploy some of that talent into some of these other things that I mentioned earlier, like the drawdown work and everything. I think we need to get a fixed date for the whole of, whole of the world if we could get it. But certainly let's be focused on Europe for a moment. I'd be comfortable with saying 2030 is the cutoff date. You make no more combustion engine vehicles. The difficult bit then is going to be, does that include hybrids? Because, that there's a big issue there.
Well, there's one thing we know for sure is SMMT are doing it in this country. The Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders are lobbying our current administration with a vengeance to maintain combustion engines in the post-2030 mix, which is kind of depressing. Kind of also predictable because it's all hybrid stuff. When last night I was watching a television program on a commercial channel with my wife. I'm not going to talk about what it was. I think it was an interview.
Oh, you weren't, Rob. You disappoint me.
I was bullied into it and sucked right into the vortex. Anyway, there were adverts in all the breaks for an athlete bouncing along between traffic, and then she landed in a car and it didn't need to be charged. It was a self-charging hybrid. And that is a TV commercial that a lot of money was spent on making by Toyota, and they are still pushing that thing. Except they just announced Toyota is now finally producing 2 battery electric vehicles, not hybrids.
I don't know all the spec of all these self-charging hybrids, but can I just ask you, because you're much more forensic on them, do they all have a pollution pipe at the back? Do they all have one of those, or just the?
I've collected the Twitter interactions, and I feel so sorry for them. It's not their fault. The PR people from Lexus, from Toyota, all of them are all using it. All of them are using self-charging hybrid, and there's some cruel but clever and articulate Twitterers are going, so explain to me I'm very interested in self-charging technology. How does that work? Well, as the vehicle slows down, it generates, and they'll do a kind of breakdown. But how does it get to the speed it needs to get to slow down? Well, that uses the engine. Oh, it's got an engine. Yes. You see these things. Oh, I didn't know it had an engine. I thought it was self-charging. It is. It's agony. And at the end, they have to say, yes, you have to put petrol in it. Actually, Dan sent me a lovely cartoon, which is Bart Simpson writing his chalk lines on the board.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah.
A hybrid car is a petrol car. A hybrid car is a petrol car.
Yeah.
So it's a hard one, isn't it?
I tell you what, someone could do a bit of guerrilla marketing. You could make a sticker. You know, when you're selling something and you have a sticker that goes free on it, you could get all these big billboard posters, put free pollution pipe with every self-charging hybrid. People think, oh, that's free.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yes. No, I don't want one of those, but I want one of those.
Yeah.
No, well, you know, they come together.
It's a
right. So it's not an electric one after all, then.
Yeah.
Well, not really. Yeah.
I mean, it's a really hard one because I absolutely started the journey I'm on in a Prius about hybrids, about that technological step. It was really critically important. I mean, you know, I actually think it's, you know, if you could zoom forward and look back, you'd go, here's the things that really changed stuff. Tesla, definitely. Toyota, definitely, with the Prius. The Prius affected so many people's attitudes to having combustion engines, to how much, I didn't know how much petrol I used before I had a Prius. It's like, I don't know. And I found out afterwards, loads. If you drive an R32 Golf, it was not possible to have a small hatchback car that could use more petrol than that ridiculous thing, you know.
Well, I think the big issue on it is I had a plug-in hybrid. Mitsubishi Outlander plug-in hybrid.
Brilliant.
Well, yes and no.
All right.
I think. Well, no. What I mean by that is,
at the time it came out, I was really impressed with it. I thought it was great.
Well, yeah, for sure. But the thing about them all of this whole arena is that they are bench tested and measured and given a CO2 output and all those other things, and a taxation regime predicated on a certain thing.
Yeah.
And if then a lot of the people that get that vehicle, the motivation is purely financial, i.e. the tax break, and they never even get the cable out of the bag. They're driving a very inefficient petrol car that does like 29 miles to the gallon or something.
If you're lucky,
Well, exactly. So the problem is, it's worse than bad, almost, if I can use that phrase. It's all about how you use it. So I think until we have technology that measures, what you use as you use it, rather than assumes an average. And if you don't do the average, well, never mind, you still benefit from the tax and all the other stuff. That's where it's all got skewed. But again, just going back to infrastructure and rollout and charging and all of this stuff, I think, let's be honest, I think the hybrid proposition is good and is a good step for a lot of people into electric vehicles. And it's predicated on being a bit of a crutch before we get to a much more ubiquitous charging proposition. Or a better education of a lot of people who are lucky enough to have drives, to know from experience that 90+% of the time, you don't get range anxiety. You've charged it at home overnight. It's only on a number of journeys where, yes, you will get occasional range anxiety, mostly because you get to a charge point and it doesn't work. Or it's the
reliability
of
full.
It. So I think the metrics and the mathematics to get to the point of not having combustion engine vehicles now, there's a journey to be had, there's a job to be done, there's a real plan to be put into place. But it's not beyond the wit of man. Go back to your story about the starter motor. Necessity is the mother of invention.
Absolutely.
If we need this to work, let's work out how it will work and get on with it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's GridServe in a nutshell.
It is.
Oh, there's a problem with charging, isn't it? And then you drive into a GridServe charging hub and you go, there isn't a problem with charging. It's really easy. It's really straightforward. You don't have to think about it, and you can get a coffee and have a wee. That's.
I'd love to go there again. It's not local to me, so I would be making a special trip. But if I'm down that way, but I feel a bit sorry for them in that opened. When was it, Rob? Was it October or November?
Yeah, it was a bad year to open it, wasn't it?
Because obviously it's in lockdown and people have got to do what they've got to do. But I think once we're post lockdown, that place is just going to get rammed. And I think it'll be rammed with petrol and diesel cars as well as EVs, because I think a lot of people will just go there out of curiosity. Which I think is what they want, and then go and have a coffee. Oh, look, there's a showroom with actual vehicles upstairs, and all of that stuff. And they've got all those touch screens and, it just makes sense.
I mean, I'm going again in a couple of weeks' time because we're range testing the ID3 long range, the 77 kilowatt hour ID3. I'm just intrigued to see. I haven't done a journey like that because, it would be ridiculous any other way. But I start my journey towards Braintree in the opposite direction because I'm going to take a massive loop to get to, you know, because actually to drive 300 miles plus in this country, you've got to do quite a big, you know, I don't know what, because I feel like I'm a long way from Braintree. I'm about 125 miles, you know, it's not that far. So when you want to do 300, you're going, oh God, I've got to go north of, I've got to go to Leeds. Go to Leeds and turn left.
Yeah. Can I really be frank? I find Twitter like, I feel like I'm about 11. I've just gone to secondary school, you know, up to big school.
And
Twitter's like the playground. Yeah. And I think, oh, I'm not going out there. So yeah, I hang out a lot on LinkedIn and do all my stuff there. But I mean, I find Twitter scary.
Yeah, it can be terrifying, but I'm manicured. No, what's the word? Garden. I don't know what I do. I'm very careful about who I follow. So my Twitter stream of information is 90% nerdy engineers working in renewable energy technology, people like Michael Liebrich, you know, who post some really, but Michael Liebrich does not post scandalous gossip about the British royal family. He's not bothered.
No, I like Andy Palmer. I like
Andy Palmer's good.
Simon Moore's Benchmark, of course.
Benchmark, amazing.
You know,
extraordinary.
And Billy Wu. If you don't, I'm sure you do.
I don't follow Billy Wu. But I do. Yeah, I've seen him.
I love his name because it sounds. I think it just sounds like a character out of the Beano. Billy Wu. You know, the footballer. You know, I can see a little, but he is a really smart, you know, chemist, scientist. You know, battery boffin. Yeah. If you want to understand about batteries and where that's all going,
and also another
Billy Wu's your man.
While we're mentioning it, Billy Wu, top dude, and also Ewan McTurk, who is a big hero of mine, who's amazing. And when people say batteries don't do this or something or other, it's just then you see, oh, well done, Ewan, because I was going to reply and I thought I can't argue with that, and he just goes with like really well researched facts from laboratories where they've actually charged the battery until it's exploded and seen what happened. You know, all that stuff is brilliant.
And have you ever come across Professor Dave Greenwood?
No. Oh, wait a minute. That does ring a vague bell. Was he at Imperial?
No. Right. He's at Warwick Manufacturing Group, but he's ex-Ricardo. Yeah. He's a professor. Yes. He really does have a forensic knowledge of the whole holistic EV thing. Right. He understands batteries, understands charging, power electronics, you know, motors, inverters. He is the smartest person I know, the most intelligent person I know. And unlike, well, I shouldn't say this really, but I'm saying it now. Unlike some really smart people, really intelligent people, they're a little bit difficult to communicate with.
Yes, communicating might not be this.
Yeah, but Dave is very down to earth.
I've got a horrible feeling I've actually interviewed Dave, which is embarrassing now that I didn't remember him straight away.
Yeah, but look, you that's the point. You interview so many people.
Quite a lot of people. Yeah.
One final shout out, if I may, Aid Thomas. Ooh. Now, Aid Thomas in Oxford, he put together last year World EV Day. It was spectacularly successful, and I was so jealous. And I think, why didn't I think of this? Wow. But he did, and he did a great job with it. And it's in September. You know, it'll be every year, of course. Yeah. And Aid is a great champion of green tech, clean mobility, you know, clean living. He doesn't own a car, rides a bike. You know, he's a really, really lovely fella. If you've not come across him, ADE, Aid Thomas, I would say to people, look out for him. I guess he's on the Twitter thing and whatever. But you know, here's the thing with it all, Rob. We just skirted around just a handful of people there. There are so many people doing so many fantastic things. You and I just had the great fortune of being able to know these people and become the storyteller. Yeah. You know, we're glorified paper boys, Rob. That's who we are, really.
No, you're absolutely right. No, I mean, that has been the deep joy of doing this is the people, you know, the incredible people I've met that are so realistically based. I mean, I think that's the thing, because it's quite easy to maybe listen to people like us evangelizing about electric vehicles, and you go, and I always accept cynicism and kind of doubt. You know, but what about, you know, what about that? Yeah, but you say that, but then you know, all those arguments. And then you go, I'm so glad I've met these people when I've said to them, yeah, but what about that? And they go, oh, well, we break that down and we recycle it. And this material is actually purer than the one that came out of the ground. And we go, it's actually, oh my God, you know, and that isn't someone like me saying it. That's a scientist who's broken the battery down, sorted out all the materials in it, purified them and made another battery. You know, when you see that actually physically happen, because that Struble dude, JB Struble.
Yeah.
What he's doing with battery recycling.
Redwood Materials.
Materials.
Massively
Amazing.
important.
We're trying to get, we will be filming there soon, but I mean, but what I loved was the footage I saw of, I just assumed they'll be getting big battery packs out of old Nissan Leafs or Teslas or whatever and mashing them up. But then you see in their kind of where their goods coming in, their goods in department, massive crates of mobile phones from sort of 5 to 20 years ago. And you go, of course. I mean, there's not one or two, because that's the thing. You go, electric vehicle batteries use so much material. Yes, they do. Here's a billion mobile phones that we've thrown away.
I know it's
vast
madness.
amounts of material. It's obscene, filthy, disgusting waste.
It is. But can I just say on the recycling, it's something I learned only recently was when people say, yeah, but battery recycling, electric vehicles, why are they starting now? It's going to be 5 years, 7 years, 8 years. Well, what happens apparently in the manufacture of batteries, there's a lot of spoil.
Yes, they're not all perfect batteries, are they? Chuck a lot.
Correct. So it's a lot of spoil on site. So what a number of these significant companies that are appearing, that is one, Li-Cycle, that's another one, that they are going to be using battery spoil from the manufacturing process from gigafactories to put it back into the commodity it needs to be, put it back into the system, essentially. So this is the whole arena now between the mining and mineral processing, the battery manufacture, vehicle in use, and a little bit of recycling here, and then end of life and reuse, recycle. That whole value chain, that whole, we'll call it circular economy, if you like, has got more attention and more focus. And JB Struble did a little interview. It was only a couple of minutes the other day. I think you put it up. I think a few people put it up, where he was basically, it was a plea to all the OEMs. Please consider this, vertical integration of your business, because if you are a hostage to fortune in any part of the supply chain now, you're going to be stuffed. So if you've got, it's great that you're all getting EV ambition, wonderful, but don't just expect this stuff to turn up. It won't. You've got to invest in it. And that's the thing that Tesla, again, have done right. They are what they call vertically integrating into the business. So they own some of that supply chain. They're not going to get, stuffed with things that are either not built or manufactured properly, aren't sustainable, aren't environmental. I mean, the one bit in the Tesla thing of late, Elon, is this thing with Bitcoin. I just don't get that. The whole thing of, cryptocurrency and mining and the energy, the vast amount of energy that all of these things, I just don't get that. I mean, he is brilliant in many ways, but that just jarred with me and so many people. And I kind of thought, he must work so hard. He must have fallen out of bed one morning and really bashed his head and thought, I know what, cryptocurrency. And he just had a bit of a moment.
Yeah.
It's just a theory.
I've just thought that because there could be people listening to this. We hope that maybe don't know the intimate and complex history of the Tesla Motor Company, but JB Struble was an absolute pivotal key, because everybody goes Elon Musk, and I've always wanted to argue, it wouldn't have happened without him because he put a load of money into it. But my God, there were some clever scientists and engineers working on that company before he got anywhere near
I think he's employee number 5 or 6.
Like number 5 or 6. Yeah, he's very early.
So it was Mark Tarpenning, Ian Wright.
Ian Wright is one who,
Wright Speed.
Because I did meet him. He came to Scrap Heap once, Ian Wright.
Did he?
Yeah, in a little 3-wheel electric car. He was, I mean, I shouldn't say this because, no, I can say it. He wasn't overly sociable. He wouldn't have got an A level in social interaction. Let's leave it like that. Brilliant guy, definitely. Brilliant guy. Slightly awkward.
Yeah.
Anyway, but he was a pivotal figure in that business. I mean, I think he got ousted in quite a bad way, and I think there's some bitterness in the background there, isn't there? But
I think look, there's the whole story of where Tesla was and Tesla is a story of bitterness and intrigue and everything. But nonetheless, that principal objective they've got, that mission statement, to accelerate the world to clean technology, renewable technology. They're doing it. It's absolutely happening. Yeah. And without the impetus that they've given it all, it would not be happening. No. You can't say it's not all down to them now, but everything needs a catalyst. There's that, you know, oh God, I'm like you. I wander around and then my brain gets a little bit frozen. That thing about the unreasonable man, you know, all progress relies on the unreasonable man.
Yeah.
That turn of phrase, that's, you know, that's Elon Musk writ large.
Yeah.
You know, land rockets back on the ground. You know, it can't be done. Yes, it can. I've done it. You know, all these other things. I mean, Jesus, I don't know how that bloke does it. How does he not go bonkers? He's got 5 kids. He's got, you know, coming into teenage years, I guess, you know, he's had a few relationship things and whatever. So and he's running. How does he do that?
No, it's extraordinary. It is extraordinary. And that there was some fabulous pictures of him after the most recent rocket crashed. I don't know if you saw that, where he's standing next to a pile of twisted, burnt metal, massive, clearly laughing his face up. He's just laughing he's with a group of engineers and he's just roaring with laughter because this huge thing has come back down from miles up in the sky.
Yeah.
And landed. It then did a bit of exploding, but you know, it did land.
Yes, the bit of exploding was unfortunate and unforeseen, but you know, I guess it's all a learning experience.
Yeah.
You know,
there's a great term that one of the engineers used, which was, it was a 3-letter acronym. It was something along the lines of, extreme sudden disassembly. It was like that. It was we had an ESD. What's an ESD? Extreme sudden disassembly.
Yeah. It's like catastrophic failure, all those words. Yeah. But can I just share with you my favorite moment of Elon Musk? I said this to Chris Payne. Chris Payne was the director, as you know, of Who Killed the Electric Car and then Revenge of the Electric Car. And in Revenge of the Electric Car, there's a moment where they're looking around the roadsters. There's a whole load of roadsters that have been recalled. Thanks. Mrs. Atkins just bring me a cup of tea.
Oh, isn't that nice?
By the way, yeah.
Mrs. Llewellyn hasn't done anything.
Hang on, I'll just show you. There's Mrs. Atkins.
Hello, Mrs.
Morning.
Hello.
Yeah.
Nice to see you.
He says nice to see you. I've got the headphones on.
All right.
Oh, of course you can't. Yes, you can't hear. Yes. Hello. Yeah. I'll wave.
There you go. So this was my favorite moment. Chris Payne was the director of Revenge of the Electric Car. He is there with the cameraman filming this moment where Elon is being shown around all of these roadsters that have been, you know, they're still needing rework and all this sort of stuff. And they come to this particular roadster. It was a white one, or pearlescent white, whatever it was. And you just hear off camera this voice go, well, this is my car. And Elon says, oh, this is your car? This is your car? And he sort of starts laughing. And then, like any salesman around the world would do, in the awkward situation of being with a customer who hasn't got his car and should have had it and has paid a massive deposit, he says, what does he say? He says, oh, really nice color choice, by the way. You chose a really good color there. I think, I've been a car salesman. That's what I would have said in that moment. And then Elon Musk, this bloody brilliant person, just defaults to being classic car salesman. It's the nice thing and the right thing to say, but you actually hear it coming out of his mouth. Yeah. And then there's the moments in that film, if anyone's not watched that, or
really
if you
worth
have to
seeing,
watch it again, Revenge of the Electric Car, where Elon is at a point where he's down to his last $3 million. He has to wire it into the bank so they can make the payroll. And then if something else doesn't happen, they're shut. They're finished.
Yeah. It was so close to not.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, understandably younger people who are all new to all of this, don't know the fact that Tesla has had a near-death experience at least twice, if not 3 or 4 times. And, you know, if it wasn't for, let's just big up Daimler for a moment. If Daimler hadn't lent them $90 million, they would have gone bust. Critical time. They were finished.
And the result of that, I think it's important to say, because every time I get in any Daimler-based car, I go, because the levers on the steering assembly, still to this day, even on my Model 3, they're Daimler. They're what you find in a Daimler, and they're identical. There's not even different bits on it. It's just extraordinary.
Yeah. However, I don't want to sort of be frivolous here, but do you think? Let me ask you this question, then, Rob. You've been around, you know stuff. Would Daimler lend the money to Tesla again, knowing what they know now, if we went back to that moment in time?
Yeah, no, God, no. No, you try and get that money out of them. You do anything. Yeah, I mean, God, it's been I mean, because I hadn't even thought of that because I haven't been there for a while. But when I used to work in California, so I was there a lot in the early 2000s in the TV industry. So whenever a TV executive came to the scrap heap set, were they in a Dodge, a Ford, a Buick? No, never. They were in an Audi, a BMW, a Mercedes. They were in European car, black. They loved black European cars. These are rich people, influential people. They always had black European cars. Having a black car in California is crazy. It's really hot. You want a car that reflects that. Anyway, they all had that. What are they in now? All of them are in Teslas. And if they're now not in Teslas, they're in Mustangs, or they're in electric cars. But imagine the impact that had on those companies who were doing a roaring trade of really expensive high-end cars in California. It was their huge market for them, and they've just been literally booted out.
Hollowed out. Hollowed out. By the way, I don't want to go on about it too much because I think it would be nice to make some nice, media, whatever you people call it. We're going live with the Jaguar I-Paces wirelessly charging in Oslo next month. So the stuff's in the ground, the vehicles are equipped, just going through all the usual sort of testing as you do with these things. But, next month, live wirelessly charged Jaguar I-Pace taxis in Oslo.
Yeah. Good. That's good. Because I knew that was coming. I didn't know when it was actually coming. That's very good news.
So I'll talk to you a bit more about that separately, because we can maybe fix something up April, May, whatever. If we can travel, hopefully we can.
We have an Oslo-based correspondent on our books, which would be so we can work on that.
There you are. Look, we're on the journey. We're going in the right direction.
Yes.
Let's not go back to the old doom-laden thing. We do need to hurry up with all these things that are going on, because there's some big old challenges. But Rob, as always, it's lovely talking to you. I'm always uplifted by the fact that you are good fun. And like I've said several times, particularly of late, you do all of this stuff for love. People, yes, they can be Patreons and I do that. I do the minimum payment. I hope you don't mind.
Yes.
Patrons. Hope they don't
That's
mind.
What you should do. That's what everyone should do.
Okay, thank you. But no, I just feel, because I really enjoy the content you put out, and I know you have a team. They all have to be paid. Of course they do.
They are amazing.
So yeah.
That's the simple truth is, they all work above and beyond what they get paid. And for, constantly. And the only thing I ever say to them is, for God's sake, turn it all off and stop. I will just finish it. Doesn't matter. I'm always the one doing that. It's the exact opposite of the sort of Victorian slave driver going, for goodness sake, leave it. It'll be fine. We can put it out later. They work so hard. They are amazing. They love it. They really love doing it. And
I suggested to Dan, by the way, given you're making these sort of movies, why don't you do a costume, a drama one? Because when you just said that, I could imagine you as a mill owner, actually, if you had the right garb on and whatever, saying, have you got another movie to knock out? Come on, boys.
Come on, another film.
Yeah.
I'd love to do a costume drama of, set in 1908, where someone's got an electric car and someone comes up with a petrol one that doesn't, because they still exist, don't they? They're mainly in the United States.
That's an idea. There you go. There's your idea.
Yeah. Oh God. I'll suggest it to someone else. On that note.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Roger. Really good of you.
My pleasure. And see you soon.
Come back soon. Really hope you enjoyed that. We had enormous fun doing it. I know we went on a little bit of a waffle here and there, but I think hopefully you were entertained. And if you're still listening now, I'm impressed, because it was a bit of a long one. But that's all. I've got nothing else to add. As always, if you have been, thank you for listening. Woo! Sorry.